Benny never forgot his old vaudeville days. Here he is with a couple of friends kidding the old song and dance act.
That's George Burns and Bing Crosby. George Burns is Benny's closest friend and favorite storyteller. He's the only one who can break him up. No matter what he does, Benny always laughs. He's also his favorite dancer.
One of the last times he made us laugh was just this fall, when the premiere of the new Dinah Shore program had a walk-on guest.
Sweetie?
Yeah, thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, isn't that dear?
Should I come out again? Look at Dinah, Dinah. This is the first show of your new series.
I know.
And, you know, we're such good friends. I knew I should be here.
That's so sweet of you, Jack. I'm so grateful. That
Well,
really
I'm glad.
is that.
And not only that, I brought you a gift.
You did?
Now, you know, everybody thinks I'm cheap.
No.
But I'm really not, and to prove it,
Yeah.
I brought you something you can use on your new show all the time.
Oh, Jack, that's really exciting. What is it? Can I see it?
Gentlemen, lower it, will you please? Will you please lower it?
Liza.
Uh-huh.
The name of the show is Dinah, Jack.
I know, but it was such a good buy, I couldn't resist.
My name is Dinah. It's not Liza.
All right. Take out the L and the Z and put in a D and an N. That's how simple it is.
But I gotta have an H on the end. I have an H on...
I'll buy you an H. How much can it cost? She's the cheapest dame I know.
A few weeks after doing his miser routine for Dinah Shore, late on last Thursday night, Jack Benny died. His funeral service was held today at Hillside Memorial Cemetery in Culver City, California. CBS News correspondent Richard Threlkeld reports.
Bob Hope said of Jack Benny's death the other day, "It is the beginning of an end of an era." And so it seemed at Jack Benny's funeral. It recalled another day in Hollywood, the limousines, the photographers, the long lines of people, 2,500 people, the police said. Old Hollywood Hand said, in fact, it may have been the biggest crowd ever for a star's funeral. The most fans, and certainly, as a measure of Jack Benny's friends, the famous ones, a whole movie scrapbook of all the people we've laughed at and cried with and worshipped all these years. Stars that, like the rest of us, have sadly all grown older. Jimmy Stewart, Edgar Bergen, Raymond Massey, Cesar Romero, Rosalind Russell, George Murphy, Governor Ronald Reagan.
We think that he was a very real and a very close friend, but I'm sure that almost everyone in the world feels that way about Jack Benny. It's a very sad day.
The people that went to work for Jack Benny and for so many years played comedians to his straight man on the radio. Don Wilson, Mel Blanc, Frank Nelson, Dennis Day, Eddie Rochester Anderson, and Jack Benny's peers, some of the world's funniest men now that he is gone. Groucho Marx, Jack Lemmon, Jack Carter, Milton Berle.
All I can say is we've lost an institution. I don't know what show business is going to be without Jack, and I don't know what the world and the people around him will ever feel. It's like the sinking of the Statue of Liberty. That's what it's like. This is about the saddest day of my life.
Maury Amsterdam, George Jessel, Phil Harris, and Danny Thomas.
We've lost truly not only great, but what can you say? Everything has been said, but the point is that he's such a tremendous talent that for him to be as gentle as he was, for that great talent. I mean, no envy, no jealousy, no great desire to be any greater than he was, and he was the greatest.
Jack Benny's widow, Mary Livingston, arrived just a few minutes before it started. It was a short service. The rabbi recited the prayers. George Burns, Benny's oldest, closest friend, could only manage a few words. Bob Hope completed this eulogy for Jack Benny.
When Benny Kobelski was born, who in their wildest dreams would imagine that 80 years later, at the event of his passing, every television program, every radio show would stop, and that every magazine and newspaper would headline it on their front pages. The millions of people who had never met him, who had only seen him or heard him, would feel the pain of a very personal loss. For a man who was the undisputed master of comedy timing, you'd have to say that this was the only time when Jack Benny's timing was all wrong. He left us much too soon. He was stingy to the end. He only gave us 80 years, and it wasn't enough. Jack Benny long ago ceased to be merely a personality and became an institution. If there's a Mount Rushmore for humanitarians, that first stone face might easily resemble him. And if stone could talk, it would say, well. Perhaps what made Jack Benny such a great laugh maker was that he himself loved to laugh. He was the greatest audience a comedian could ever want. George Burns will attest to that. And all of us would play jokes on him just to break him up and hear him laugh. I know it might sound a little corny, but there'll be times from now on when the lightning will crackle with a special kind of sound, or thunder will peal with a special roar. And I'll think to myself that Cantor or Fields or Fred Allen must have told Jack a joke. In his beautiful full lifetime, Jack succeeded gloriously. Jack found a great joy in the joy he brought to others. I cannot say it better than these words. His life was gentle, and the elements so mixed in him that nature might stand up and say to all the world, this was a man. God keep him, enjoy him. We did for 80 years.
Jack Benny will lie here on this hilltop overlooking Hollywood. Al Jolson and Eddie Cantor, among others, are here too. When it was over, the rabbi recited the Kaddish. It's a doxology, a Hebrew prayer, praising God for his gifts to man. In this case, for the gift of Jack Benny.
Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabo, bolamo devaroch rusei v'yamlich malchusei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechal beis Yisrael, v'agolo v'zman kori v'imru omein. Yehi shemei rabo mavorach la'olam l'olmei mayo. Yisporach v'yishtabach v'yispoah v'yisromam v'yisnasei. V'yisador v'yisaleh v'yisalol shemid kadesho brichu. Leilom in kolberachoso v'sharoso, shishpachoso v'nechamoso, damiran v'olamo v'yimru omein. Yehi shalomo rabo min shemaya v'chayim aleinu. V'al kal Yisrael v'yimru omein. Oseh shalom bimroma v'yaseh shalom aleinu. V'al kal Yisrael v'yimru.
It seemed that everybody in show business knew Jack Benny. One who knew him well is Danny Kaye.
You know, in a profession that has been oft-times maligned, you know, and a lot of myths have grown up about the profession, there's one that always seemed to kind of take root in many areas, and that was the words. Did you ever hear the words professional jealousy? Yeah. And I think that applied more to our profession, or the myth applied more to our profession than almost any other. And Jack, I think, gave lie to those myths. He disproved them over and over and over again. Because Jack was a very, very gifted man in himself. He was very secure in his own belief in himself. And he was very outgoing with other people and younger and newer talent. Jack would sort of embrace them. He had a genuine admiration for people who were talented. He had a general sympathy for those who were trying to get ahead. He had an enormous ability to help people. And the all-embracing quality of Jack was something I think we don't see very often. He had, in my belief, a sense of professionalism that was unmatched. It was unerring in its instinctive rightness. And he admired almost everything that was professional. He was a professional from head to toe. He admired it in athletes. He admired it in music, in musical artists. He admired it in performers. He had a genuine feeling of belonging and embracing not only the people in his profession, but people in general.
What was that professionalism, his sense of timing, the gesture?
Well, that was legendary. His sense of timing was legendary. For Jack to have given somebody a joke to tell, which was usually on him, and then for him to go, he could hold that forever. Also, he was, as most comedians are, very serious about his work. A lot of people seem to think that comedy is something that springs forward and it just naturally bubbles over. In some cases, that may be true. In most cases, although somebody is gifted in a comedic sense within themselves, it is very, very hard work. And Jack used to devote himself and dedicate himself to his standard of performing.
How did you meet him? Everyone we've talked to seems to have known him, forever.
I've known Jack 37 years. And the very first time, I was talking to Mary the other night at the house. We were doing a benefit at Madison Square Garden 37 years ago, 36 years ago, I don't know. And there was a fellow walking up the steps in a light trench coat. And I said to Sylvia, "That's Jack Benny." And I then went out and performed. And Jack came by and said, "Gee, I thought you were marvelous. Are you at the Martinique?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'll come in tonight." And he did. And he came in night after night after night, always bringing people with him saying, "You got to see this fellow." Now, I have seen him throughout the years do that. Somebody new, somebody gifted, somebody talented, and he would be as joyous about that as somebody he had discovered by himself.
Great teacher.
Yeah. And you see, the sadness of Jack's going is something that we're all going to have to live with, and it's going to take its toll, and it'll take whatever time it has to take to get over. But when that period is gone, as it inevitably has to go, the legend that he has left behind is something that is going to be a beacon for many young performers, many older performers. It will be a textbook, in a strange way, of how it should have classically been done.
In 1948, something earth-shaking happened in radio. Jack Benny moved his program from NBC to CBS. The author of that move was the chairman of the board of CBS, William S. Paley, and the two became good friends. Yesterday, Mr. Paley spoke of Jack Benny and then was interviewed by David Culhane.
Jack Benny was a highly original and uniquely enduring artist, equally at home on the stage, behind the microphone, and before the camera. It's a measure of the greatness of his talent that he made it all look so easy. But those of us who were associated with him knew that this was not the case. Behind the winning grace was a discipline, a professionalism that was unique and outstanding. Behind his superb style was a constant drive for perfection. And behind the unfailing sense of timing was the meticulous attention of a master craftsman. Jack's radio program had such integrity and reality that it was among the very few that could be transferred intact to television with an unbroken continuity of cast and format. Much of Jack's talents, his charm, and his credibility rubbed off on those around him. In this way, many of his colleagues, including his devoted wife, Mary Livingston, themselves became American institutions, bringing delight and humor to countless millions. I must say that broadcasting as an art form was greatly enhanced by the genius of Jack Benny. And now his long and richly productive career has come to a close. But his high standards of excellence, his steadfast respect for his audiences, and his generous affection for the American people leave us all with an influence that will be felt for a long time to come, and many of us with happy recollections of a very dear friend.
What do you think the final impact is going to be? I mean, I think of Benny going through all those years, and what is the impact on the rest of entertainment, television, radio?
Well, if he's asking me what has he left, I'd say he's left a great big void, for one thing. I can never see another Jack Benny coming along. He left, however, with those who are professionals, a conviction, I think, after they knew how he prepared himself, that to produce a successful show or program of any kind, and maybe particularly a comedy program, a great deal of work and sweat has to go into it. It's a worrisome job. Producing humor isn't funny. It takes a lot of know-how, a lot of intuition, a sense of what the people will like, a sense of what they'll understand. And of course, as far as the performance is concerned, these outstanding skills that Jack Benny had on one hand, Bob Hope has on another, George Byrne has. Each one has his own style, his own peculiarities that come through and make each one separate and apart from the others. And usually when they are good and have these individual skills, they become stars.
In other words, Benny set a kind of standard of excellence.
Well, I think he probably went at it more seriously than almost anyone I'd come across up until then. It was serious business with him. And when he got in front of the microphone, though, he knew he had to take the serious business and turn it into something that was very amusing and very funny. And that he was able to do.
Did you have a sense of how he felt about the audience?
Oh, yes. Jack had a great respect for his audience. He didn't regard them as being 12-year-olds, as a lot of people used to say the audience was. He regarded them as adults who appreciated good humor, who were sophisticated, and who couldn't be talked down to. He never talked down to his audience.
Jack Benny's father, the Waukegan storekeeper who wanted his son to be a musician, might be glad to know that when we think of Jack Benny, we'll always think of him with a violin in his hand. While I did my monologues, he said, I held onto that violin like a crutch.
May I have my violin, please? Thank you. My bow? And my rosin? Now, of course, normally, you see, I would have a stagehand to bring these things out, but I just thought I'd like to do something for you folks who are not music lovers. Do you know that I practice 2-3 hours every morning? Nearly every morning. I practice as much as I can. And one reason I practice is I love the violin. Another reason is because it is not funny to give a humorous concert and really play too badly. because then it looks as though you're trying to do it and it's corny and not funny. When I give a concert, I actually try to play as well as I can. Now, that's what's funny about it, because a good concert goer knows I'm trying and I can't quite make it.
Once, to help save Carnegie Hall, he even played Bach with Isaac Stern. It was a classical performance in more ways than one. And once more, just once more, let him play that unforgettable duet with Giselle McKenzie. And so now, 72 years after Meyer Kubelski gave his son Benny a $50 violin, the violin is stilled. Jack Benny said that playing the violin with the Philharmonic was like being alone on a desert island with Zsa Zsa Gabor and her boyfriend. You feel you're not needed. Well, we need him, all right. Everything is not going well with us, and we need him holding his hands and staring that way, showing us the humor in the human condition. Everybody's voice has become so loud, he knew the uses of silence. The times have grown so harsh, and he was so gentle. We need him. Of course, all of us with a memory still have him.
CBS News has presented a tribute to Jack Benny.
Supporters feel ERA will pass the House of Representatives without too much opposition. They are worried about the Senate committee members passing the measure after testimony is heard on Wednesday. Jose Grignon, Channel 7 News.
And a sad note in the news tonight, the wife of Congressman Claude Pepper has died of cancer. Mildred Pepper was 74 and had been seriously ill since October of 1977. Funeral services are scheduled for Tuesday morning at the First United Methodist Church in Coral Gables. Two women arrested here last night in connection with an alleged abduction plot are being held in the Dade County Jail without bond. 23-year-old Terry Stubblefield and 32-year-old Regina Potts face an extradition hearing tomorrow morning. Police are still withholding the identity of the man shot to death late last night after he stabbed 3 persons in downtown Miami. The 3 had already been stabbed when a Miami police officer took off after the 29-year-old suspect. The officer shot the victim when the subject turned on him with a knife.
Jordan Marsh is having a betting sale that's so spectacular, we're calling it an event. Sealy and our own Stearns & Foster, 2 of the greatest names in the betting industry, have gotten together to give you fantastic savings for 2 days only. Choose a twin-size mattress or box spring from Sealy or Stearns & Foster in firm, extra firm, luxury firm, or super firm for only $78 each. Larger sizes and additional furnaces are comparably priced. It's Jordan Marsh's Betting Spectacular, Sunday and Monday only.
You'll get a bright, clean out of your machine in cold water with cold power and speed. It's true. You try it too. You'll get a bright, clean out of your machine in cold water with cold power and speed. It's true. You try it too. You'll get a bright, clean out of your machine in cold water with cold power and speed. It's true. You try it too.
That's the Sunday Night Sport with Lee Webb. Brought to you by Gilbert's Fine Furniture of Domino's.
The separation for years from the outside. The persecutions. The exile. He gave up his wealth and his station. He proclaimed his mission that God had sent him to found a new world religion, uniting all the existing religions. Each, he said, proclaims a truth. Each reveals God. Now we must end separation, man from man, nation from nation.